morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's CC-Webinar live session, which is part of our TIS Rome event, our virtual event. We would also like to thank Sparkle for sponsoring this webinar session. For our audience, if you have any question, please feel free to use the chat box option throughout the panel. Also, at the end of the panel, we will have a time assigned just for your questions, which you will be able to ask verbally by clicking on the raise hand button and allowing me to unmute you. And now, I would like to invite our moderator, Eric van Stockholm, to introduce our keynote speaker and later on to moderate the panel. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Laura, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. We will have a fantastic hour ahead of us here at the TIS virtually from Rome. We're going to talk to you about the data centers at the forefront of the vision of a data-driven world. So that's a mouthful. So make sure you keep on tuned and listen to the keynote speaker and the panelists. So we're going to discuss actually what we're facing actually with regards to the speed to the market and the challenges which accompanies it with it, virtualization, artificial intelligence, machine learning, what have you, and how will data centers continue to build on the subsea cable boom we're seeing, even if it has to go hand in hand, as we know and we learned from the morning sessions. I'm very honored and very proud to have as a keynote presenter here with me Carlos Cesare Biondo. He's responsible for a team for the cloud projects. So Carlo, welcome. And happy to have you here, and very honored to listen to what you have to share with us from Telecom Italia.
Thank you very much. So the first thing I would like to do is to talk a little bit about what is actually happening. If we realize, I worked for about 11 years at Google, and I just joined Telecom Italia 6 months ago. And what surprised me is that we rarely speak of the changes in business model that these technologies are bringing. The first one, which had been very relevant, has been that marketing became a variable cost during the year 2000 to 2010, meaning a small company could purchase marketing euro by euro and compete with big companies because the cost of creating sales forces or the cost of marketing has actually completely changed and became variable. This has also been enabled by mobile and e-commerce, of course. Now what we see is that information systems are becoming a variable cost or somehow can be purchased via cloud computing, and according to different data center or colocation approaches, they can be purchased as consumption. You purchase what you consume. And with the arrival of AI, the same thing is happening. Small and medium companies, if they innovate, if they adopt those technologies, can dispose of the same power than big companies and dispose of the same infrastructure. If you think about it, this is what has enabled the gaming sector, for example, to become one of the most important segments of the economy. Now 160% of advertising, when only 10 years ago it was about less than probably 20% of advertising. So what is changing recently? I mean, this morning we heard our friends talking about the COVID, so I will not talk about it again. What I think we also heard is that the debate on European data sovereignty is becoming stronger and stronger, and that Europe is trying to find its own way between US and China, thinking about values and what we represent for consumers and certain elements of respect for humanity that we feel are important. The third element, which we heard this morning, I think it is very important. And I want to summarize it with what Thierry Breton says at the European Commission is, if 80% of the data are today stored into data centers and 20% on the edges of networks, this should be inverted by 225. Now, I don't know if Breton is right or wrong, but he's the legislator. So he's got some ways of making his predictions through. And if you think about it, this will change the architecture of data center and infrastructure in a very profound way. If you add to this what is happening on the market, which is that cloud computing, which is basically the content of the data centers, is growing, is outperforming the growth of the whole of IT very significantly. 19% of compound annual growth for cloud computing in the next 5 or 6 years. Same thing in Italy, same thing in the world, same thing actually in France, with managed services growing 22%, meaning the service layer becoming more and more important, with cloud products, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS growing more or less the same way. I think that's extremely important. I also have to say that I believe the calculations from our friends from Gartner on co-location that say co-location will grow at 9%, meaning the service of just, locating yourself in a data center, continuing to calculating only this part of the business, I think is underestimated. And I think we'll see, and we are seeing at the moment, demand for our co-location in data centers much higher growth than that. Now, if you think about cloud services for a second, why are companies and people willing to use them that much? Of course, breaking free from technological obsolescence is important. Flexibility and scalability. I want to develop my offers faster and I want to scale, like the gaming sector, which can make 50 million customers for things like Mario Bros or things like this in less than 2 months. This was unimaginable only 4 or 5 years ago. TV took 50 years to reach 50 million customers, I remind you, and mobile took 5 years. Now a game takes 5 days or 50 days, whatever. Security, which you can actually offer better with cloud and the rest, and certainty of the provision of SLA, because the regulations can be, and this is very important for what we are seeing in Europe, can be somehow designed in a more precise way. I will not enter into each of those because I don't have the time, but I think it's very important to see which are the first 4 and see certainty of the provision here. We'll talk about it, I think, during the panel because the colleagues from Cisco and Google have a lot to say about this. And this is, I think, a very important element that we rarely discuss. Team, why is team in cloud? Well, first of all, because voice will not go back to growth. Second, because team has got very strong assets to play the game of cloud. One, we have a very big infrastructure of data centers in Italy, and we have with Sparkle presence all over the world with as well infrastructure that can be of very important value. We just spoke about edge. We have an integrated offering. We have an offer that goes from the data centers to the cloud via partnerships with many vendors. We can support the technology development because of our network presence, and we have an international standing. So we believe that we have a big role to play, and I can tell you that for having discussed that with the board many occasions in the last year, cloud computing is the core business of Telecom Italia today as much as connectivity is. So just to end up here and then just to start is going back, giving back the word to Eric. To me, what is really important in the discussions we do is to realize how profoundly they are changing the basis and the hypotheses of the economies we are in. This change, I was saying before, from availability to a few that have to have big investment abilities to develop an info system, to it's available for everybody. And you can design processes, and means that it's a complete change in the way to approach cost and revenues and business models. And I think this is very exciting times if we can work with our partners in making the right choices. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlo, and thank you for sharing, let's say, the insight from Telecom Italia. Very interesting. Now, let me see if I do see, let's say, live a question coming in. No, maybe from our panelists there is a question coming. I don't know. Paolo Agostino. No, if not, then I have a question. You mentioned that connectivity and cloud are, let's say, one of the major pillars within Telecom Italia, because the voice is, let's say, stabilizing, or at least is not growing, or hardly growing, although a lot of people think that voice will always stay there. But if there's a lack of growth, of course, you need to look, let's say, for other parts. So next to connectivity and cloud, where do you see, or within those two, let's say, pilastri, big pillars. Where do you see, let's say, other parts of growth coming? Not only maybe for Telecom Italia, but also maybe for the rest of Italy, or even broader in the world.
What I think is interesting to see nowadays is that the frontiers between sectors are blurring. You can recombine your asset in new ways and enter into a new sector. You know, when we see companies like Google trying to offer services in pharmaceuticals because they combine apps in a different way. So today, if you look at what we have in telcos, networks, call centers, data centers, very complex ability to build, and access to very wide bases of customers, combining those things differently, we can imagine many services and many new things to do. So it's difficult to tell you what will Telecom Italia look like in 5 years from now. What I'm sure of is that if we combine our assets in a clever way and are really customer-oriented by understanding what we can provide to users with this, we will enter in new fields we never imagined before. Lots of will happen in the home, with cars, by advanced usage of cloud. I think we're at the beginning of a change of the definition of sectors, which will impact all aspects of company life, including regulations and legislation, because you have to look at this in a different way, given what technology can enable you to combine. For example, Orange becoming a bank, or Telecom Italia deciding that cloud is important and then recombining these assets to make it work.
Thank you, Carlo. You also mentioned that or that's how I translate it. The target time to market for the services within our portfolio is getting shorter and shorter.
Yes.
And we need to be more aware. But on the other side, huge investments are alongside with, let's say, those new products and services and solutions. I mean, I can imagine that there will be a huge battle. I mean, especially for let's say the marketing departments and let's say the big M&A firms, they should be well educated to really understand, to make sure to the investors that they have, let's say, an opportunity to invest in, let's say, this growing market. But I can imagine that it's quite tough, especially on the return on investment. But what can you share with us?
Well, if you look at profitability of cloud services today, if you have the right mix of product ownership, meaning you build your own solutions and manage services, profitability can be at the levels of 40 or 35 to 45%. If you are only a reseller of software, yes, you'll be between 10 to 15. So clearly there are investments to be done in order to be able to be a technology provider in full sense. But if you think about it, the companies which really grew and make money on the web, and we've got two of them we'll talk during the panel with, which are probably the best examples, Cisco in the last 30 years and Google in the last 20 years, they invested heavily in products, both of them. But they have an integrated model which includes the product and the sales, and they became between the biggest companies in the world. So, I can tell you that at Telecom Italia, we are very ambitious about what we want to do with cloud, but we want an integrated model where we develop our own products. We don't want to be the mere reseller of softwares built by someone else and make no profit.
Very clear and very clear strategy. Thank you for that. So, Carlo, thank you very much for your keynote presentation and sharing your views within a snapshot of the cloud landscape. And so thank you very much. And if people still have questions, they know how to find you, and otherwise it's through us, the care community, to find you, to come with the related questions. So thank you very much for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to bridge this to our panel discussion. And of course, next to Carlo, we have two other gentlemen, and already tipped on it from Cisco and from Google. So I'll give them, including maybe Carlo at the end, a quick minute to introduce themselves and to tell them why they're actually on this panel and why we should listen actually to these gentlemen. So Agostino, if I can start with you. Welcome, first of all, and please tell the audience who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for a great invitation and a great attendance of this fantastic panel. I'm Agostino Santoni. I'm the general manager of Cisco Italy. I'm passionate about technology and innovation and business model. And I believe this is a great moment to discuss this topic around the evolution of the user experience and the cloud services. And I'm really looking forward to give my contribution to this panel. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Agostino. And I like your surname. I really like your surname.
Yeah.
And we all know why. So
we need it.
Yeah, assolutamente sì. So thank you for that. Paolo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eric. A pleasure for me to be here as well. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Paolo Sprafico. I've been at Google for more than 10 years right now. I'm an engineer in my heart, let me say like that. I'm running the customer engineering team for Google Cloud here in Italy. And I'm super pleased to talk about innovation or all the great things that the cloud approaches bring into the market to help everybody.
Thank you so much, and really an honor having you and Agostino here, as well as Carlo. Carlo, maybe please, for the people who just missed the beginning of your presentation, please maybe you can elaborate to us a little bit who you are, what you do, and where at actually.
I'm Carlo. I've been working with companies related to internet in the last 25 years. I left Google what is it now, 5 months ago, because to join Telecom Italia, somehow to put in place the partnership that I contributed to selling to Telecom Italia when I was at Google. So happy to be here, and I'm running the cloud activities for TIM, as well as partnerships and alliances for the whole group.
Happy to hear you made the right choice, and congratulations on
on
joining Telecom Italia.
Grazie.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much, and again, very honored to have you on this panel with absolute senior knowledge. So, people out there, make sure you listen and come up with your questions, because the gentlemen are here to answer your questions. Now, we're talking about, let's say, cloud and the current data center landscape. Agostino, if I may start with you, who and what are the key drivers, and what are the latest developments actually in our data center world we live in? And for most, actually, maybe you can tip on this. Do we need, let's say, common views between the different areas of the world?
Yeah, great question, Eric. Let me start with a small example that is coming from one of our customers. When he is the CTO of a big bank in the UK. He told me in my interaction one thing that to me was an open-ear. He told me, you know, which is the largest branches I have in my company? And I was giving some nice example. He told me, the largest branch I have is the subway in central London in the morning at 8 a.m., where I have thousands and thousands of customers that are connected to my online services, and they want to have a great experience. So he told me, dear friend, make sure that the level of application and the level of visibility of the application, that means the network, the cloud, the data center, and the security associated, are full visible and transparent in the experience of my customer. And this is, in my view, a great example that is the opportunity of today. So if we are all focused, and I do believe we have to be all focused on customer experience, visibility is playing a great role. That means, as I was saying, developing new architecture that creates that experience that can be unique and that can bring value to our common customers. To make it happen, I believe the magic word is create platforms that are simple, open, programmable, and secure. And as a company that's referred also to Cisco, we are very committed to create the platforms and technology, products and services that are extremely capable to talk and to work with everyone that can join this kind of idea and vision of a technology that is application aware and give full visibility. So that's why we are partnering with a lot of vendors and partners to make it happen, because to us, it's the great new things that can help the digitization of my beautiful country and Europe and the entire world.
Well spoken. Paolo, is he right?
Absolutely right. And by the way, I think it's super important to try to highlight the openness words that Agostino used. At Google, we really think that we have to build really open architecture and enabling our customers to really develop by this a portable and open data powered innovation. What we mean with this? We mean that there is a great opportunity on the market. There are a lot of data around. You need to develop an independent capability to analyze this data and drive your decision upon this analysis that you can drive, even using new things like machine learning and things like this that in the end are really automating and improving your way you really focus on the business, not just, for example, on running your own infrastructure. Another thing that Carlo mentioned is the level of investment. Just want to remember here that Google invested in the last 3 years, 47 billions just to develop this infrastructure. Okay,
It's nothing.
That is
nothing.
It's nothing, but it's a great, we think, enabler to really bring this data-driven innovation to your companies and enable everybody to focus on the business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Now, Carlo, you already mentioned a little bit, and everything goes super fast nowadays.
Yeah.
So how are we facing the speed to the market and the challenges it accompanies with? And please explain the audience what are the main challenges, and maybe you can address maybe something about, let's say, the new go-to-market strategies.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, of course.
Más o menos.
No, seriously. I think what we see today is more and more a desire of control and security with the data, as well as ability to interpret data. Because, I mean, when we call them data, they have to become information. Data in itself has a limited value. It becomes information and we can use it. In the last 6 months, we have seen initiatives like Gaia X in Europe arrive. We have seen governments strengthening the legislations about where data should be stored. We have seen the desire of abandoning the risk in Europe of being submitted to the American Cloud Act. We have seen Trump relaunching protectionism. We have seen China fighting against all of us on those aspects, and companies like Huawei being, more difficult to use for all of us. So, which means that portability becomes essential. We have to be able to move ahead and take away our data from one place or another if needed immediately. So again, openness, as Paolo just said, is a prerequisite to that. So it's very important. 2, we need clarity on processes. I mean, when I outlined in the presentation before that the ability to have clear processes and design them and shape them on cloud is important. It's a fundament. And then we'll have to define what values we want to defend. So I mean here that the architectures will need to be under the control of the companies, and cloud operators need to be very transparent in giving them the keys. Encryption, for example, security, safety, all those processes will now have to be embedded into cloud. And I think we really started discussing about this only probably 2 years ago in the business. So things change very, very fast.
Okay, thank you. Paolo, maybe something to say on let's say, the new go-to-market strategies?
Absolutely. I mean, I would like to just mention something related to what Carlo was mentioning. Of course, right now, data sovereignty is a big topic in Europe. And absolutely agree that openness is really something that is enabling, of course, all the cloud architectures to be really portable and potentially implement, for example, hybrid architectures or multi-cloud architectures. So in the end, bringing freedom, but potentially even enabling customers to really, let me say, make your choices independent from the cloud vendor, and in the end, keep complete control of your data. For example, creating ad hoc disconnection from the cloud provider as you need. These are very, very super important and relevant topic right now in the agenda of every C-level. And we think that, of course, cloud here is a great enabler on this. In terms of GTM, absolutely, we think that we have to build our cloud GTM on 4 main pillars that are around security as a first step. And of course, this is really related to data sovereignty. Second, infrastructure modernization. That's what I'm very focused on, and is really enabling us, let me say, to scale the business in a secure and reliable way by the cloud. And of course, all the analytics, smart analytics topic here is super important because we have a lot of data around. All companies owns a lot of data generated by IoT technologies and things like that. But the point is that we need to make sense of this data. And leveraging on this to really develop an understanding of your business and your data overlaid is really critical to make sure that your GTM is going to be successful on the market.
So, having you said that, then Paolo, please explain us the importance of and let's dive a little bit more in deep. Explain to the audience the importance of the virtualization. I mean, the AI and the machine learning, but also the big data. And Carla was addressing this as well, and its potential disruptive elements. I mean, what kind of innovation is Google bringing on the cloud market on these, and what will the impact be?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, at Google, virtualization translates in containerization. Containers right now, in terms of technology, is the basic building block on top of which you can really develop scalable and reliable virtualized architectures. Okay, there's an evolution there. Of course, there is an application modernization that you have to bring on the table to make the usage of containerization happening. Consider, for example, that at Google, every single workload in our cloud is a container, and we run 5 billion containers per week. So we strongly believe that this piece of technology is critical in really leveraging and maximizing the return of investment from the infrastructure that every company has to make. Say that, of course, as you said, even in running machine learning processes, AI processes on top of this as a container is a great way to scale and develop, in the end, great neural networks that can really make sense of your data. Great internal example that may be relevant for the audience is the leverage that we made on AI at Google to optimize energy consumption within our data center. We started the project in 2014, and after this project started in a Google innovation spirit by a couple of folks, we've been able to save 30% of power consumption just automating the allocation of power across our data center. This is a great example on how you can really optimize, let me say, your business. Of course, our business is running in this, for the cloud part is running this kind of data center, freeing up resources that may focus our final customers on the core business they are managing. Mm-hmm. Just an example, we have plenty of this. Of course, the great point is that we brought this kind of technologies on the market with things like TensorFlow that quickly became the most downloaded machine learning project from GitHub. And by this, we are now plenty of customers leveraging on these technologies to really optimize their processes.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Paolo, you just mentioned, let's say, the environmental part of it, the cooling. I'll come back to you with this question. Now, hold on. Carlo, what is your view on this one? I mean, on the whole AI machine learning and I mean, you know how those guys from Google work. Are they on the right path?
Machine learning is fundamental to allow to make sense of the huge quantities of data that now are available. So I think if we think about it, most of the complex web products that we use every day, from email to search, are to even today, even in music, in adapting systems to rooms, we make use of machine learning and AI. So I don't think there is any other path than understanding how those technologies can help you to make sense of the huge quantities of data we all dispose of. I think it's absolutely fundamental. the cost and time of trying to make sense of those data manually would be so high that it's really a nonsense. So clearly, AI is the biggest enabler of cloud because it helps to make sense of the data that are stored in the cloud and make sense of the cloud itself. Now, again, when you say data, in order to be usable, they need to be in a certain form, they need to be fresh, they need to be somehow coherent in how they are used. So there is a lot of work to do in order to prepare companies to use AI. It's not something, it's not difficult in itself to use the software, but make sense of it and use it in a meaningful way implies having thought about how to create your database and how to develop it. In that sense, openness is also very important. So I think, yes, it's a key enabler for the future that needs to be thought as a part of your business, as being part of your core business, instead of being just perceived as an add-on.
Okay, thank you, Carlo. Now, Agostino, just let's move a little bit. How can we make the data center and network speak the same language?
Back to you, my previous comment around visibility. Again, if you really would like to improve the customer experience, the big technological debate and architecture you have to build is how to make sure that since the application is used by the user till the data center back and forth, you have full visibility. In this domain, we at Cisco, we invested a fortune on acquiring companies and investing in our internal R&D to make it happen. So as a great example, in the data center, we acquired AppDynamics that give you, if you run the data center, you have visibility on the KPI of your business. Means, where was the problem? Why my e-commerce was not working as I was expecting? What was the missed opportunity? And you run the data center, and you as a business leader, you have the full capability to have this visibility that helps a lot to drive your business. That's the kind of visibility for within the data center in the application system. If you look at the latest acquisition we have done, it's Thousand Eyes. And the business challenge, the technological challenge for us was, how can I combine the visibility I have on the application side in the data center, combining in the network? And we do believe that if you want to have full visibility of your application, you have to have this end-to-end architecture. That's the ambition we have, to create such level of visibility that technological speaking means sensors that are in your software, sensors that are in your data centers, in your network, end-to-end, that give you the visibility I was referring to. The other aspect where I believe we have to be super, super cautious is the security aspect. Carlo and Paolo were talking about artificial intelligence usage with great example. I will give you another one that is related to security. We are the largest cybersecurity player in the world, and every day we are blocking 80 billion attacks. That's huge. I mean, I know 80 billion. I mean, I'm not able to count 80 billion. So in order to materialize it, it's relevant, right? I mean, you cannot do it without artificial intelligence embedded in everything we do in our security technology, as a great example. So I believe it's critical for the experience of our customers, visibility. It's critical visibility of the application within the data center, outside the data center, in the network, and it's critical the security aspect of this huge transformation. These are some of the areas where we are focusing, again, internally with our R&D and externally through acquisition, because this is to us the last mile of the innovation, having in mind the user as our final objective.
Eric, I would like
Thank
to
you,
add
Agostino. Carlo, please, yes.
I would like to add something here, which is, when you look at cloud, we always think about the technology element of it. but let's talk about the service element also. I mean, if you are a company today, you can go to discuss with a cloud provider and ask for services that allow you to speed up the way you manage IT and decide what you keep inside and what you outsource. So you don't need to dispose of an incredible ability to develop machine learning. You just ask the provider to kick it off for you and help you get there. And I think that's a very important element of how those cloud service companies are built. They are here to be service providers to support managing the IT of their customers in a way that's innovative and present. And it's not only about the infrastructure, it's about how you use it.
Mm-hmm. No, clear statement, and so true, Carlo. Now, Paolo.
Yeah,
I told you I'll come back to you on the environmental part. Environment is becoming more and more important. I mean, keeping yourself cool. I mean, about the rising costs from climate changes. How does Google actually optimize cooling in the data centers in a green way? I mean, I have to ask you this question. I had to.
Thanks for that, Eric. Of course, we are really committed to the sustainability topic at Google. You may know that since 2007 we are carbon neutral. More recently, in 2017, we achieved 100% of renewable energy usage. It's great, and we recently, Sundar, our CEO, recently declared that we are targeting to be 24% carbon-free energy, so eliminating all day long any kind of emission for 2030. So this is a great commitment. Of course, we are really aware of the importance of this, and this is a topic that is on every, let me say, C-level agenda right now. We did multiple things, of course, to achieve these kind of things. The first one is, of course, being aware that in the end, infrastructure is consuming a lot of energy. It's just overall 1% of the overall energy consumption in the world. So running data centers is quite critical. That is an environmental point of view. And we recognize even that on the market, CIO are feeling new pressures for transparency and responsibility around this topic. And we are here to help in the end, just sharing what we are doing. First of all, of course, we try to make more efficient the running of our infrastructure in terms of computing power. Right now, compared to 5 years ago, for example, we are 7 times, we are running with the same, let me say, computing power, 7 times more efficient compared to 5 years ago. Thanks to great innovation. For example, we were talking around machine learning. We introduced on the market in our data center and in our cloud computing offering the concept of TPU, TensorFlow Processor Unit. That is a kind of jump in terms of generation in running machine learning algorithms in a much more efficient way, making available to customers and to us, of course, as the first customers as well, of our technologies, the capability to train neural network much more efficiently and achieving, the proper level of, let me say, correct answers, correct predictions from a neural network much sooner than before. And then I already mentioned the way we automated, starting from, what we named 20% project from a couple of engineers, the 30% power consumption savage, introducing an automated way to allocate computing power across the different nodes that we manage on our infrastructure. This was a very, let me say, simple project at the beginning, and now became a strong asset by which we really reduced the overall consumption in our data centers. Of course, making closer and closer the target that I mentioned you in 2030 to become completely carbon free.
Okay, cool. Carlo, should he speed up, or because I can imagine that you could that people from the audience could also say, yeah, but it's also in your. I mean, power is one of the. If it's one, I mean, data centers are using 1% in the world of, let's say, the power, but power for a data center is one of the biggest costs there are, and so it's also in your interest to make sure that you lower those costs. and next to it, having of course as well addressing the demand from, let's say, the outside world, because they say, listen, we want to have a partner in business who is not only cost effective for himself, but also make sure that he is the right, let's say, green partner for the future, which is good for everything. How much do you think that is also true for Telecom Italia?
I think it's true for everybody. If you are not sustainable today, environmentally sustainable, and you don't care for that, you'll pay the consequence long term. So we have to think about sustainability embedded in our business model, and I think we are. It's fundamental. Now, I'm always a bit skeptical when I hear those discussions about data center consumption, because we don't say what the alternative cost would be and what the alternative problem for the environment would be. So if you need to say I consume more and less, you need to compare to something. So to what are we actually comparing, and what would be the world? So if the good thing is, if you hear it today, companies like Cisco, Google, I think most of the telcos are being very serious about the environment. And if those are the companies who will carry the burden of the data on behalf of customers, I'm absolutely optimistic, because they took it very seriously. And we are all talking about it as if it were one fundamental core task of our business. So I think this is actually good news, and we are doing this in a way that's pretty sound. The alternative would be if everybody had to run its own system. I'm not sure that it would be so much better in terms of economic consumption overall.
Oh. No, I think you're absolutely right, and thank you. Now, Agostino, data centers at the edge, a differentiating asset for service providers to protect, or an extension of web scalers to the last mile. Here you go.
Thank you for the question, Eric. You are really, really nice. Also, this question in 30 seconds, right?
32.
So, 32. Thank you for the two. So let me just, so as Cisco, we are very passionate around this concept of edge. And if you remember, years ago, we were one of the first talking about fog computing as a partner of the cloud computing. And you know, fog was, I mean, in our idea of the cloud was a nice example. Where we are coming from? We are coming from an idea that from the beginning of the internet, more bandwidth was the way to improve user experience. If I look today, if you really would like to improve our user experience today, it's of course more bandwidth, but there is a new concept that is lower latency. So if you look at the technology available, we believe that, and I was referring also from Carlo's presentation when he was mentioning the evolution of the edge. I also look at what IDC is saying, and they're saying that 17% of all data will be created at the edge by 2023. 50% of cloud deployment will include edge in 2020. So I was referring in 2020, that was a statistic before the COVID. We will see what will happen to the edge and the cloud together. What we are seeing is that this conversation is in the market. I'm referring to the SD-WAN, I'm referring to other IoT projects. So this conversation is here. But on the other side, came to me, if I look at the go-to-market and the business model, for years, web scaler and telcos were competing. And in the recent year, they started partnering, and we are very favorable to help companies like Team and Google Cloud. As an example, here in Italy, they decided to partner together. So if we reflect for a second, take the cabinet and the asset that Telecom Italia has, take the cloud expertise that Google Cloud has, and take Cisco vision architecture to drive infrastructure or data center at the edge with our technology. What does it mean? It means that the cabinet and the data at the edge will become a value. That is something that the telco were looking for years. The cloud provider will learn how to monetize also that part of the data together with the service provider. So at Cisco, we are very committed in this way. There are several ways to approach it for a telco. Either you give the opportunity to the service, to the cloud provider, that you rent your asset, the cabinet, or the cabinet will become an edge connector. That's our view, where you have an architecture that can help you to drive virtualized radio, virtualized IoT solution. Imagine the opportunity that we will have in managing video optimization, where the power is at the edge, or content delivery network. So what we see is that an opportunity to develop new business model where partnership among companies I was mentioning before can create, because of lower latency, new services. And to us, this is one of the largest opportunity we have. The example of Team and Google Cloud, from our point of view, it's a good one, because they have all the ingredients with the aspect of being open to create a new business model that I believe it would be extremely helpful also for Telecom Italia.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make a bridge between 5G and Edge.
Thank you.
To try to understand why we believe it will be used more. Let's think about cars. If you go to connected car and if you go to driverless car, how many information do you need? And how local do you want to keep them? And how secure do you want to keep them for misuse? If you start to imagine health, on health, we say now that we will measure, if you look at the next Apple Watch, it will measure your heartbeat all day and night. And we start a new form of medicine by measuring things, not as today, every 3-4 days, but constantly, and looking at the difference. Imagine how much data this implies. I'm measuring your heartbeat, Eric, sometimes 10 times a day. Oh, sorry, 10 times a minute. So clearly, edge is because of the quantity of data that will come from consumers that we will have to manage extremely quickly. And clearly, this will create new needs in many sectors. I mentioned 2 of them, but I think we could analyze each and every sector and say, in my industry sector, what will change? What are we willing to measure close to the consumer? Hence, what will I need in terms of infrastructure? Hence, how the telcos can help at achieving that.
Paolo, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with everything that's been said. I would add that, to really bring innovation, in an environment, you really need empathy, and you really need to meet your customers where they are. And the partnership with Telecom Italia really goes into this direction. And under this, I think it's even more important when you have to deploy a solution at the edge, or in a multi-cloud fashion, or in the hybrid cloud. You really need openness, and that's what we try to do, bringing new technologies like Antos, that is this platform to deploy really open application everywhere you want and where the customer is on the market. And local presence, again, here is super important. So we are really pleased to work with Cisco and the Telecom Italia to really bring these kind of things local.
And Eric, if I may, one more comment, because we touch it, and I believe it's also for our country is a great opportunity. This transition to the edge creates an edge, what I call an edge application enabler. And if your infrastructure and your services are open, it creates the opportunity, for instance, for startup or for the innovation ecosystem, for a creation of new application and new services and new business model. So it's as Carlo was saying, it's not just a question of infrastructure. It's a question of rethinking the business model. It's a question of rethinking or creating a new opportunity for developers. The 5G case, it's interesting one. How many use cases you can create because of the lower latency of the 5G? And it starts from the cloud delivery, from the edge delivery, and from the application side. So I believe also for the innovation ecosystem, especially here in the country, I believe it will be, and it is, and we see it, a fantastic opportunity to rethink a lot of new business models in order to achieve better customer experience. That's that's my consideration after hearing Paolo and Carlo.
Oh, that's absolutely clear. I mean, gentlemen, we there's still one topic I want to go a bit more in deep, because we touched it already, and even Carlo, you're just saying what's going to happen with the data of our cars. What is Tesla doing with all that data? So, on one hand, and actually on more hands, actually, security and is an important point. And while talking about data centers, I mean, we cannot avoid talking about security, especially now and in the future. So, what are we facing actually? And Paolo, you mentioned already what you're trying to block every day, and how can we battle against it? So, Paolo, if I can start with you, please.
Yeah, I would say that first of all, security, real security needs a lot of focus. And overall, my suggestion is, of course, to delegate security to proper actors on the market. And of course, at Google, we are really, really keen to this because for obvious reasons. And I think that the cloud, under this point of view, is bringing, let me say, a major innovation, making every kind of application deployment much more secure. Give you an example. Our engineers, a couple of years ago, found out a couple of CPU bugs. Okay, maybe some one of you remember that. It was named Spectre and Meltdown. And they fixed this in the cloud, basically without any kind of service disruption for our customers. Because in the cloud, we are made in a way that is possible to find out with proper professionals these kind of things, fix them in a transparent way for our customer. This is pretty incredible. It wouldn't be possible, to fix this in a normal or in an on-prem infrastructure. So my suggestion on this is, of course, delegate to great people this kind of topic. I mean, to great engineers this kind of problem, and leverage on the cloud as a great way to make the impact of a security bug, for example, like this, be fixed without any kind of service disruption.
Here,
Okay.
I have a slightly different view than Google.
I'm happy to hear that, Carlo.
To be honest, I think the first thing is to define what security is. What are we talking about? Are we talking about cybersecurity? Are we talking about integrity of data? Are we talking about security in the sense of respect of privacy? Are we talking about respect of certain norms like GDPR and other things? What are we talking about? So the first thing I think we need to do, and we can't delegate to anyone, any company has to do that, is to define what security means for them. Once this has been done, you can decide what are the processes you want to apply and when, and what you can delegate in execution to who. But the definition of security is very personal. If you ask me what security is, I think it would be very different for you and for anyone in the world, because we all have our own definition. So that's the first thing to me, define what we talk about. Security is not cyber security, it's also integrity of data. In some cases, it's openness. For me, if it's not open, it's insecure because I can't use it. I can't transform my data into information. So again, it's a very complex topic. The first thing we should do is to have a proper discussion about what are we talking about.
Are the governments and the regulators and governance helping us in this?
Yes and no, because the problem is that it's sometimes very emotional with governments at the moment. They use the word like if it were a buzzword. Security is at risk. Yeah. What? Where? What side of it? What's the problem? I think we need to go at the level of proper rational discussion about topics and then define exactly what the problem is. Sovereignty is a question of respect of certain rules. To be totally honest, sovereignty today is not better if the data is in Italy or in Germany, provided it's under a legislation that's common under Europe. And we are seeing now people that say, no, the data has to be below my house, very close to me, because otherwise I'm at risk. I think,
look at the discussions with the Corona app. I mean, è così.
I'm not convinced that governments are let's say, calm enough to go to the details of definition, and that somehow creating fear and creating a buzzword of something is sexy, but doesn't always help.
Agostino?
So I will try to be specific now. I'm under pressure from the definition of campus, so I'm referring to cybersecurity, and I'm joking, of course, but I believe he's really right. So when we are talking about cybersecurity, we are talking about four main things to make, and we have to be all aware: people, processes, technologies, and rules. We like some concept at the technology point of view that is called security or cybersecurity by design. So we are really focused not only, I mean, in the past it was easier. You built a firewall and you protect your company. Now the concept is now shifted to another point: how you protect your employees or your customers. And the borders are completely different. So it's not anymore, how can I protect the enterprise with a firewall? I'm just simplifying, sorry for the technological experts, but how you protect your users. And it's a different world. It's a world of cloud or multi-cloud or different interaction your user has with your company. So how can we make sure that you protect users in this way? And I do think that technology is important, but I'm a strong believer that people and processes, people means the awareness of the issues around cybersecurity, as an example, or processes that companies use to be more safer in the way they're doing their business, or the legislators and governments when they are thinking about security. These three elements are part of the overall conversation. By the way, our industry since now made big mistakes, because one of the largest IT industry in the world is cybercrime. And we have plenty of solutions around cybersecurity, Cisco included. So we have an idea how to transform this business that is platform-based, open. Also security has to be open. Our technology security solution has to be open. They have to be programmable. And if you think about security solution in the past, who was saying that security solution has to be open? It's not easy to get it right. So we do believe that technology also on security should be open. And we do believe we are in favor of platform-based security solution in order to fix this issue of cybercrime.
Grazie, Agostino. So, gentlemen, and we're slowly going to the end, because I think we can talk for another 2 or 3 hours. I'm just not sure that our audience would like it, but if so, come with a request and we'll make sure it will happen. So, gentlemen, scoping a bit the future. What do you think? And maybe Carlo, you can start. What will hit us, if something will hit us, and what's there to expect? Well, what do you think? What will come to us?
I think what will hit us, and may hit us very hard, is discussions on how you perceive the world, about values. We tend to say that Americans are more individualistic in terms of how the legislations are made, the dream of the individual success. Europe is a middle between individualism and collectivism, and China and Asia are much more on the collective side culturally. Whatever, but globalization has brought us to share the same world, and we don't have the same way of looking at the values. I think this clash is still to happen. And it can be an opportunity for the ones who are very careful to create things that are respectful of each other, of diversity of the values. But the ones who want to impose their own ways of looking at things will suffer a lot. So what I think we have to do in the sector is be very careful to what openness means, respect of different views, and the ability to live with values that may differ according to specific situations in order to adapt to the world we live in. But there will be an element of clash of values, I fear, and we will live somehow difficult years, specifically if you see now how the world is polarizing between the US, Europe, and Asia.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Agostino, how do you see, what do you see hitting us in the future? What can we expect?
I would carefully watch this concept of, I'll give you the example of our purpose. Our purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. leave it for a second Cisco purpose. But I do believe we have to be super cautious in the concept that digital should be and must be inclusive, and it cannot generate further divide. That's one topic. The other that I'm always looking at is which kind of leader and leadership is needed, back to the values Carlo was saying. So it seems a bit high in the conversation, but I see as a professionist and as a person of the world as 2 or 3 very important topics where we have to discuss as leaders and as members of this fantastic world.
Thank you. Paolo, some famous last words.
Yeah, now listening to Agostino and Carlo, I was thinking around values. And I think the most important one that, you know, in my humble way, I'm trying to pursue is focusing on my users. And around this, I think there is a big room, you know, around the world to improve, even, you know, under a, let me say, legislation point of view, regulator point of view. We were talking around data sovereignty, super important. We can't forget, in any case, full respect for the user and of course, full respect of the innovation that we can't give up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't see any questions from you out in the audience, and it's not only on Zoom, it's also live on Facebook. So I don't see any questions from, so gentlemen, I mean, Carlo, Agostino, and Paolo, you are so clear and you made us think. So I would like to take this moment and to thank you very much. We had, of course, Agostino Santoni, CEO of Cisco Italy. Thank you so much, and an honor having you. Paolo Sprefeico, Head of Customer Engineering for Italy at Google, and of course from Telecom Italia Mobile, responsible for the TIM Cloud project, Carlo Dazzaro Biondo. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank my my fellow panelists for discussing and sharing your knowledge and your views on what is happening actually in the data center world and at the forefront of the vision of a data-driven world. So thank you very much, gentlemen. And I would like to thank the audience for being with us. And again, if you want to hear more about these people and about this gentleman, please stay tuned because tomorrow we have another two webinars coming up at this fantastic Telecom Infrastructure Summit virtually from Rome. So from myself, I would say ciao for now, gentlemen. Thank you again for being with me on this panel, and I would like to give the floor back to the studio, Laura in Berlin. So again, thank you very much. Ciao for now, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Eric. Dear participants, we are at the end of this panel. And I would like to thank Carlo for his interesting presentation, Eric to you for moderating, our panelists for joining and sharing the knowledge, and our attendees for listening. We are also looking forward to welcoming you in our webinars planned for tomorrow. For more information, please head to our CC portal webinar section. Also, if you would like to support us and sponsor one of our future webinars, please contact CC team. I wish you all a good health and stay safe, and see you tomorrow.